so much for joining us. Obviously, the topic is on the screen there. A little bit about me is I've done movement-based rehab for over 18 years. I have a brick and mortar business. I kind of started the online thing a couple years ago, and then obviously with COVID, it's kind of become, or it gave me the time to make it more than what it was. I have a family, obviously a husband and two little sons. And what we plan on doing today is I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions. We're going to kind of talk about the main points that this session is about, like sciatic pain, back pain, hip pain, all like pelvic floor stuff. And then I'm a big believer in like helping you to see the difference, feel the difference, and then also ask you questions that we don't always ask ourselves, or we don't always notice the efforts that we're making, but are they really helping? So there's going to be some inquiry into your body. We're going to talk about a little bit of education. I'm going to try to keep it as basic as possible because I really want to get into the exercise and helping you become aware of new like blinds, these new areas of your body that you may not know, and then how you can apply it to your life. Some of the questions I want you to think about is, what do all these problems have in common? So yes, you might have sciatica, you might have back pain, you might have hip pain, you might have all of it. You might have, you go to jump up and down and you leak a little. You might have hemorrhoids. You might have all of these things have similar. They're similar in the fact that they come from our mid area, right? They're problems about our mid area. But this somebody that has sciatic pain and another person that has sciatic pain, we all have different histories as to how we got there. And you might notice that your pain might come and go, or it might be something that it's just new to you, or it might be something that, has been like an ongoing problem. The biggest thing I want you to take away from this is that we're all different. So you're all going to take different things away from the stuff that we're going to accomplish today. And that sometimes when we look at the efforts that we're making, we need to look like, are they actually helping us? Right? So how often do you stretch? How often are you treating that symptom? And then does it really accomplish what you're trying to accomplish? And then at the same time, have you ever asked yourself what you are trying to accomplish? Or are you just living in that tight pain, suffer, what can you do, go get treatment, come back to the suffering, stops you, removes you from what you want to do? And then really, like, have you ever thought about what you're trying to accomplish? And a lot of the times when I ask people, you're making these efforts, what are you trying to accomplish with these efforts? And a lot of times people are like, I don't know. I've never thought about that. You're just living in the trying to survive mode. Okay, so what I want you to consider, what that is possible, is that movement comes from a relaxed state. So what do I mean by that? It means what we do does not have to be labored. So our efforts do not have to be exhausting. Like, think about a toddler. If you've ever watched a toddler move, are they huffing and puffing as they go from a squat position to standing to playing with their toys? No, but when we try to do it later in life, because we've lost this ingrained way of moving because of, external factors or, injuries or, repetitive motions, any of that stuff, we lose that ability to move from a relaxed state. So I really want you to think about that during this whole session, because the efforts that you should make you feel relaxed. So they should accomplish what you're trying to accomplish, which means like you're trying to get out of pain. You're trying to take away the tension. And I'm going to kind of go over this fine balance that we're going to work between a stability and mobility. And I'll kind of explain a little bit about that. But I really, in the back of your head, as we start to go through this, I want you to think, do I feel relaxed? Okay, so we're going to do some stuff in diving into the diaphragm. The diaphragm is one of those really powerful tools that will help you to determine how well you're stabilizing. So it's kind of, I mean, there's a lot more people out there tackling the diaphragm, but so you might be in a yoga class and you learn the belly breath, but there's so much more to it. The diaphragm is the top of your core. So I consider your core like this whole area, right? It's not how many sit ups you can do, right? It is about how the top, so your diaphragm, and the bottom, your pelvic floor, how they interact and how they can pressurize this whole system that I call your core. So your diaphragm controls many things. You breathe with it. It delivers oxygen to your muscles. It acts as a sphincter to your stomach. It will also put you in fight or flight if you're not using it properly. So your diaphragm is like one of those muscles that just can affect, just learning to breathe in different ways and different awarenesses will change, literally change your life and change your stability. Now, your 360 core, I've kind of touched on it a little bit. So, what we're going to do tonight is kind of introduce you to what a 360 core feels like and how you can assess whether you're actually using it or not. Our whole body kind of works between this balance of stability versus mobility. So, stability is your body's ability to move from point A to point B, which the next slide we'll talk about. It has to do with, okay, so if I'm here and I want to walk over there, it takes a certain amount for me to get there. Okay. Now, when it comes to stability, stability is the part that makes that easy. So if you lack stability, you will be more tense. It'll cost a lot more energy for you to get from point A to point B. We will always go from point A to point B because our body is amazing and it will, find a way to get you there. But you'll see the difference between a toddler that moves from point A to point B versus someone that's in pain that you can see, struggles, or their gait is altered and their breath is altered. And you see the difference between being effective in that movement of point A to point B versus, lacking some stability. Then you actually lose range of motion of your joints. Okay, so a good analogy that I have is you want to kind of think about a rowboat. Oh, so maybe I should talk about how they affect one another. I kind of talked a little bit about that. But if you don't have one, you won't have the other. So, you might have tension and stiffness. Well, anytime you lack stability somewhere, another part of your body will react to that and actually lock down to protect you. And it's super common for you to lose stability in your pelvis and your low back and lose range of motion in your upper back and your hips. So if you always feel like, you have to stretch and stretch and stretch your hips, but every time you go back to stretching, or like in any version of a stretch, it's not the fact that you need to stretch more. It's the fact that that body part or that tension area is doing more than it's meant to. So there's a number of reasons that tension can show up. And I mean, I could go on and on about like all these different reasons, but more or less, you just need to dive deeper into the way you feel. So if you have tension somewhere, you need to seek out why there's tension instead of just beating that area, stretching that area until you hope one day it will release. So it's like having a bruise on your arm and you go, why are you not healing? Why are you still there? Right? So I just want everyone to kind of just be open to the fact that there might be a different way. And I'm not saying that what you're doing is wrong, because it's not. It's just a lot of the times we're missing some little details that will make the biggest difference. So if you're someone that feels like you've been treating the same problem forever, or you're someone that feels like you're chasing one problem after the other, I'm telling you, you just need to find your stability. And we're going to kind of touch on that a lot in this session. So a good analogy that I like to give, so you can move to the rowboat. So if you think of someone in a rowboat, right, and there's a whole group of people, and if they're all rowing at the exact same time, and they're all doing exactly as they're supposed to do, that they will move at a very high speed across the water in a very easy, relaxed state. Okay. When we lack stability, think of, say, 2 or 3 of those rowers just sticking their oars in the water, and there's one rower left. And they will still move from point A to point B, but think of the amount of extra effort that it takes for you to get from point A to point B, and how tired you're going to be when you get there. So when I say movement comes from a relaxed state, it literally can. We just tend to not know how to go back to that. Okay, so I want to kind of go through some exercises with everyone. So I want everyone to be kind of in, you can take the slides down, Amanda. And now we're going to all be sitting in a chair, and I'm going to take you through a number of awarenesses. And then we're going to do a bunch of stuff, and then we're going to come back to that awareness. So what I want you to do, sitting in your chair, I want you to go to what you think is ideal posture, okay? And notice if you feel relaxed or stressed, or what you feel in general. Okay. And now in that position, I want you to try to put weight into your feet. So you're literally taking your feet and you're pushing it down into the floor. Okay. Now, a lot of people might notice, oh, how the heck do I do that? Or you'll feel like you want to move forward. You'll feel like you want to twist. You might feel like one foot's easier to push down than the other. Right? And just notice. I'm not asking you to like change anything, but all you're going to do is notice. Okay. Now I want you to go out of that, what you think is better posture, and just relax. And I want you to go back to the same thing, and I want you to push down into the floor. And you want to try to push with your whole foot, not just parts of it. So you want to be equal weight from front to back and inside to outside. And I want you to notice, did that get easier than when you were sitting in a better posture? Or did it stay the same? Okay. And whichever one felt a little easier, I want you to stay there. Okay. So if it was better when you adjusted your posture, then you stay there. If it was better when you relaxed, I want you to stay there. Okay. Now the next thing I want you to do is your feet are on the floor, and I don't want them to move on the floor, but I want you to think of pushing one foot forward and the other one back. But I don't want them to move. So it's just the effort of pushing forward and pulling back. And just notice, did something happen at your hips? Okay, like did you feel like you wanted to like scoot your bum on the chair? And then try the other side. If you push your the opposite leg forward and the other one back, did that get easier or did that get harder? And we're just noticing at this point. Okay, and now another thing I want you to, and then just make a mental note of it. Now another thing I want you to do is I want you to think about spinning your toes out. You're not, again, moving on the ground. You're thinking about spinning your toes out. And number one, can you? Okay, and then I want you to think about spinning your heels out. So the idea is you're literally just keeping your feet stationary, and you're going to think about spinning or rotating your feet. And then in the back of your mind, just make a mental note of which was harder. Was it spinning out, or your toes spinning out, or was it your heels spinning out? And then with the push one foot forward and push the other one forward, which one was harder? Okay, and then just make a note of it. Okay. Now what I want you to do is everyone's going to put their hands up high. Okay, and we're going to move your breath around. So wherever our hands are is where I want you to try to breathe. So you're going to take a deep breath up into your hands. And we'll do that a couple times. And all you're noticing is, can I actually breathe up there? I don't know. Is it? And if you don't know, that's still noticing. Is it easy? Is it hard? Okay, now you're going to put your hands at the side of your ribs. And I want you to try to breathe out. So you're trying to push your hands out through your breath. And just notice, can you? Okay. And then what I want you to do is you're going to put your hands at the top of your hips. You're going to put your fingers to the back or your thumb to the back and your fingers just to the front. So it's kind of like the hamburger hold and you've got your hands in the squishy bits. So now what I want you to do is, can you breathe low and wide and towards your thumbs? So you should be able to feel pressure happen into your thumbs as you breathe. And again, if you can't, don't worry, we'll get you there. All we're doing right now is determining, okay, where do I breathe? Can I actually move it around? And where do I struggle getting my breath? And you're just noticing. Okay, now make a mental note of, okay, which area was the hardest. Now what I want you to do is you're just gonna breathe. Now when you breathe, I want you to think about noticing the temperature. So as you breathe in, it's a certain temperature versus when you breathe out. Okay, as you breathe in, it tends to be a little bit cooler than as you breathe out. And just notice that exchange as you breathe a few times. Okay, now what I want you to notice is notice the noise that you make as you're breathing. So you're going to breathe in through your nose and out through your nose or out through your mouth, totally up to you. But notice the noise that you make. It's typically higher pitched on the way in and lower on the way out. And this is the noise that nobody can hear but you, really, unless you're a really noisy breather. It's not forced. I just want normal breath. And now as you're noticing the noise, notice where it's going. Okay, a lot of times when we do breath work, it's very conscious. So what I'm trying to do is create an unconscious change. So I'm giving you different tasks to think about. So I'm literally tricking you to breathe better. So now the next thing we're going to do, so we notice the noise. Now what I want you to do is when you breathe in and out, I want you to take away that noise. Okay, so I want you to breathe as quiet as you can. And initially when you start to do this, you're gonna feel like you're gonna suffocate. Don't worry, you won't suffocate. It's just your diaphragm regulating. Okay, and notice how the area that you were breathing changed. Now this little trick can be done anywhere. So if you take away the noise, it will slow down your breathing and it forces you to work into that 360 core. So it will create support. So if you struggle with getting dishes out of the dishwasher, take away the noise as you're breathing and now you automatically have core support instead of bracing and gripping and not breathing. Breathing is a really good indication as to whether you're stressed or not. Okay, movement, remember, movement comes from a relaxed state. So whatever you're doing, if you're not breathing, you cannot survive it and you're not making a lasting change. So all you're doing is feeding to the tension that's in your body because of the lack of stability. Okay, so I want everybody to put their thumb and index finger together, and I want you to take a deep breath and just notice, where did that breath go? Now, most of us will feel the breath up high, okay? Now what I want you to do is you're gonna take your thumb and pinky finger and you're gonna squeeze them together and I want you to take a deep breath. And now notice how that completely changed your breath, okay? There's a reason why babies do what they do when they come out. We don't teach a baby to first learn to lift its head, reach for a toy, you know, roll over, crawl. There's like these ingrained processes in our brain that create stability. So pinky power is one of the many things, the many tricks that I teach. So pinky power will change your life. So if you're someone that is at the gym that lifts weights, grab your weights from their pinky. If you're someone that suffers in your car when you're sitting still, grab your steering wheel from your pinky. If you're someone that struggles with carrying your groceries around, taking a pot from, a lower place to a higher place, grab the pot from your pinky first. There's this ingrained process in our brain that connects to the neurological pathways that bring stability just by thinking about grabbing things from your pinky. And I encourage you to test this. So pick up something, when next time you have you're carrying groceries in or a bag or your purse or whatever, grab it with your index finger, your two fingers, and hold it by your side. And just notice the havoc that happens in your neck and your shoulders and wherever else. Then I want you to grab it from your pinky and your ring finger and feel how it automatically changes your connection to your stability. Okay. Now, breath is only one of the many things that will change how you stabilize. Another thing I want you to another thing we're going to bring attention to is your glutes. So a lot of people with sciatic, hip, back pain tend to use your glutes in a gripping, bracing, oh my God, hold on for dear life type of manner. So everybody that's sitting here, notice, is your bum on? If you're someone that lives in fight or flight and you have a lot of tension, chances are you don't even notice that your bum is stuck on. Okay. Now, if you notice that your bum is on, I want you to relax it because there's no need to have it on while you're sitting there. And then notice when you're in bed, notice when you're lying down. The problem when we lack stability is our body has a hard time getting out of that fight or flight. And when we have stability, that whole when we lack stability, getting to that relaxed state is the hardest thing. You think you're relaxing when the whole time you're holding tension. So, the people that they crash rather than rest. The thought of lying and breathing is just torture to a lot of people that are living in that fight or flight. There's lots of ways that you can change your breath in exercise, in how you grab things, in just becoming aware of what's on and shouldn't be. Now, when it comes to our glutes, and I can say that probably everybody that signed up for this experiences some sort of problem through our core and stiffness. I mean, our whole society, we just sit too much. Now what I want you to do is just notice, do you have equal weight over your bum? Okay, do you even know where your sit bones are? Can you feel them? Okay, now what I want you to do is I want you to squeeze both your bum cheeks. Okay, now if you're someone that spends time squeezing your bum to get it to work, or you squeeze your bum because it helps your back pain, I want you to really take note of this. Okay, can you squeeze your bum, first of all? And when you squeeze, notice what else is on board. Are your quads working? Are your thighs working? Do you feel your groin working? Do you feel your feet, your hamstrings? Do you feel your pelvic floor, your tummy? Did you feel like your pelvis moved in any way? None of that is a glute contraction. So now what I want you to do is, can you squeeze, okay, and relax all the parts that decided to take part with you? Okay, so relax your quads, nothing to do with it. Relax your groin, nothing to do with it. Right? Relax your hamstrings. Relax. Make sure that you're not tightening your tummy. You're not going into like this fetal position. Okay. Now, how many of you actually know if you're squeezing your bum? Okay. The best way to know is to stick your hands underneath your butt. Okay. A lot of times we think we're squeezing our bum, when in fact we're actually squeezing our sphincter or our groin or tightening our tummy, thinking we're squeezing our bum. Okay? We cannot think a muscle to function, but if we're trying to create function somewhere and we're not, we're actually feeding the problem. Okay, so now our hands are underneath our bum, and now I want you to go back to squeezing your bum cheeks. Did something happen underneath your hands? Okay, and I mean, when I was in school, and I come from a long line of a lot of real estate, but I didn't have a lot of action back then. And I used to have to lie down to squeeze my bum, and then I would sit back up and go, okay, I have my bum squeezed. And then I would try, okay, I gotta relax everything else. And then at the end of it, there was barely anything there, but I found it. And then when you find it, you can build it. Okay. So now the next thing I want you to do, now for those of you that have no idea how to use your bum, that's fine. Now you know you're not using it. Okay. For those of you that feel like, oh my God, it won't shut off, that's fine. Now you know it's on 100% of the day. So it's just about creating balance. It's overworked and underpaid. So now what I want you to think about doing is, now, if you can squeeze both, can you relax one? Or can you go from relaxed and squeeze one? Chances are you'll be able to do some version of this. Okay, and then are you actually squeezing what you think you're doing? And then make sure that you're not moving your pelvis in any form or fashion. Okay, and this is just awareness. This is not going to strengthen your glutes, but this will make you aware of what's unnecessarily working, because chances are your glutes are stuck on. If you have back pain, if you have tight hip flexors, if you have tight hips, if you have sciatic problems. Sciatic problems is kind of like your body's way of saying your pelvis isn't level. Okay? Back pain is kind of your body's way of saying my pelvis isn't level and my hips are really tight. Because what happens is, no matter where you are or who you are, the general theme of how our body compensates is we lose range of motion, we lose stability, we lose range of motion, we lose stability, we lose range of motion, we lose stability. It always alternates. So it might feel like you're chasing a problem all over the place, but it's just the fact that you're lacking stability. And then those that have an area that just won't give, then that's usually a sign that you're lacking stability. We all compensate in different ways. And what I want you to take away from this is that we don't have to work as hard as we think we do. Because usually anybody that's in pain is like either getting treatments 25 hours a day if they can afford it, and or like, oh my God, if we're in lockdown, how am I going to survive? I'm telling you, you can survive if you create a little bit of awareness. Okay, now remember the first thing that we did where we pushed our feet into the floor. Okay, now what I want you to do is I want you to push your thumb and pinky together, or not thumb, yeah, thumb and pinky, and I want you to keep it pushed. And I want you to add the breathing without noise. Now I'm getting you to multitask, so if that's too much, pick one. Okay, now what I want you to do is you're going to push your feet down into the floor. And now you're probably going to notice that that's way easier than it was the first time. Okay, now what happens if you go to push one foot forward and pull one back? Okay, does it feel the same than it did before? Is it a little easier? And you will feel your legs work. That's not wrong. Okay, because we are creating activity. And now when you go to push one foot forward and pull the other one back, do you feel how it's a little bit more level than the first time you did it? Okay, and now we're going to go to spinning our toes out. Okay, can you? Did it change? Okay, and then you're going to spin your heels out. And notice when you start to spin your heels out, notice the space that happens between your sit bones. So initially, anybody that struggled with spinning their heels out probably didn't notice anything change in their pelvis. But the second time around, after we did some breath, which really wasn't that hard, right? We haven't moved from a chair and feel how much we've changed. Okay, so when you push your feet into the ground, and you can push your feet into the ground, and you can move and you can spin and rotate, that's connection to your core. Because those are all the things that we use to move, like to walk, to like there's internal, external rotation of your hips, right? Now, a lot of people that maybe have pain in sitting, have you noticed a difference in the pain? Have you noticed that you're a little bit more equal over your bum? Okay. Now, even you can even take a walk around and you're going to feel surprisingly loose sitting here doing nothing. Because it's really that easy sometimes. So when it comes to our core, a lot of us spend a lot of time chasing strength from here, right? And do you see how that just keeps coming into here? So our ability to stabilize in that 360 core and having our diaphragm connect to our pelvic floor. So if you suffer from any sort of pelvic floor thing, even uh, hernias, you know, urinary incontinence, hemorrhoids, that's all just a message saying you're not connecting to your core and you're not using that diaphragm to its advantage. So if this is your pelvic floor, it kind of reacts to it's like a piston, it moves up and down. Okay. If you have been told you have a tight pelvic floor, or you've been told that you have a loose or a lazy pelvic floor, chances are you have both. Because what happens when we start to go into this brace with our pelvis, and if you're a bum clencher, it kind of puts you in this like tighten and everything flares out. So your quads do everything. You don't know how to use your bum. It turns on like mad. Your low back is tight. Your abs are wondering what the heck to do. It's because you live in what I call jazz hands. Jazz hands, right? So if you think about the front of your pelvis, the front of your pelvis should face on the road, where most of us have our pelvis facing in the ditch, which your pelvic floor runs from your pubic bone to your sit bones to your tailbone. It's like a diamond. Okay. And if you go in jazz hands, the front of your pelvic floor will be really tight, and the back, because your sit bones are living so close together, that it becomes like loose and lazy, right? So when you start to create this interaction between your diaphragm and your pelvic floor, it will help you stabilize in your pelvis, stabilize in your back. It will help with all your pelvic floor problems. It will help you to get to that movement comes from a relaxed state, and it actually frees up your hips to move. So the main takeaways from this is you can apply pressure into the floor and create those awarenesses, which helps you connect to your core and your hips. You can use pinky power in anything that you want to do, right? You can take away the noise to create more stability. Like if someone struggles with rolling over, breathe by taking away the noise. Anytime you notice that you're not breathing, breathe. I promise it will change. Okay. And then can you actually bring some life to your bum that's not full on or non-existent? So tight hips, shut off bum. When we have tight hips, it makes it really hard to create function in our glutes, but we also might turn them on as a protective mechanism if you have back pain or hip pain or sciatic. It's like it's the same but different, as I say, because it's all about being able to stabilize through this 360. It's like having a foundation in a house, right? If you don't have a foundation, you'll have a crack in the wall. If you put a band-aid on that crack, chances are the band-aid will either break over time or a crack will show up somewhere else. So if you feel like you're chasing problems, you need to get to the foundation of how you move. And it's not always about what you're doing, but how you're doing it. And when you create a little bit of awareness, and it's individualized awareness, so the same thing doesn't work for everyone. So you might know, with everyone that's in this, if two of you notice that your bum doesn't work and the other two notice that it does work, you're still working towards the same thing, but in a different way. So if you're someone that spends a lot of time stretching and you never actually get anywhere, or you have no idea what you're trying to accomplish in your efforts, and you don't know how to gauge if you're doing it right, it just takes a little bit of awareness. So really, it's not always about the part that's screaming the loudest. Okay, we tend to get distracted with the ow, when a lot of times that ow is just the part that's screaming, help me. And it might always be the problem. So, what can you do about it? I really suggest looking beyond the ow. Think big picture, right? The pain and tension is only telling you something. You want to create awareness, and your breath is the best and easiest way to create awareness in what you're doing. If you can't breathe, you can't survive, and it's not right for you. And then it's all about building that foundation, which is a 360 core, right? That interaction of how your spine, your pelvis, your limbs connect to it, and how one of the most powerful things you can do and the easiest thing you can do is bring awareness through your breath and your diaphragm. And some people know how to use part of their diaphragm, but they don't know how to use other parts. And you might find that one breath technique works for you and another one doesn't. It's not about finding like the perfect treatment. It's about finding what works for you. So when you create body awareness, you can apply it to anything that you want to do. It's not about what you're doing, it's about how you're doing it. Okay, so really what I'm trying to share with you is that really small changes makes a big impact. There's so many people that feel like they have to work harder. And I just see people being torturing themselves when they think that it's what they need to do. If you hurt, if you spend time doing something and the next day you can't get on and off the toilet, chances are what you did not feed your movement. Feeding movement should dictate what you're doing. If it takes away your movement, then you didn't have stability in what you were doing. The big things are easy to do. The little things, the little details, and the awareness that only you can do for yourself is what's going to make the big impact on the bigger things that you want to do. So everything that I went over today, you can apply to anything. You can practice it just as we did it. I do have a membership where I guide everyone through the 7 phases of building your core. So every phase is we walk through breath, we walk through your upper back, we walk through all the parts of your body. And then we do movement classes to teach you how to combine what you learn and what you create. So it's all about creating awareness of where you have sticky points in your body, and then about how to apply it in the big picture. And then I have tons of resources that have exactly to do like the pinky power and being active in sitting. I have a newsletter that you can sign up for. You can follow me on social media. I throw all sorts of videos and information up on that. And then so it's really what do you want to accomplish? Because really the sky's the limit. Once you kind of teach yourself your blind spots of how you move, then really I believe anything's possible.